Okay, we are live today. This is our Career Discovery Friday. And today we have a former baseball student athlete. Stephen Ochs is with us today. I believe everybody called you Ochs, right?
Yeah,
Probably several nicknames.
that's kind of been consistent. It's weird still when people call me Steven.
Steven just doesn't like feel right, so we can just go ahead and call you Ochs.
That's fair.
But Oaks still it doesn't even feel right for me either. We played sports here at Florida State about the same time. What year did you start, Stephen?
Okay.
Oh, 05. Okay, so you're just a little bit younger than me, but we don't have to like really get into that math. But today, the reason why we brought Stephen here is because he has really just blown up the world in the entrepreneurial side of things. So I'm just going to ask him to share a little bit about his story, some of the things that he's been working on and that process and what that looks like for him as now a business owner, someone who is expanding like crazy and just growing his market. But Stephen, can you tell us a little bit about your experience at Florida State, a little bit about some of the baseball stories and maybe what you studied here?
So I studied psychology. I grew up a huge Florida State fan. My dad went to Florida State. That was always my dream school. That's still the only time I've ever seen my dad cry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You signed?
Not through the business stuff that I've done now, just the sports related stuff. But I honestly, I had a unique experience at Florida State because of, my roommate at Florida State, Brian Kelly, ended up being he's in Florida Georgia Line. So
What were y'all drinking in your apartment? Because obviously, like it was success water. Like
he
you,
was drinking it because he was serenading us like, and at that time like we were like he was okay, but it wasn't
yeah,
anything. And you see what hard work has done, and now it's crazy to see where he's at now.
who else lived with you guys? And was it just you two or?
So I live with Tony Thomas,
Yes.
and Tony, what was it? The first, I want to say he has the first stolen base, the
Yes.
first person ever to steal first base.
I think that's
Was
right. And
it
he
him?
just had a baby, I think.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
That's awesome. So just a very successful environment in college for you guys.
I feel like that's what Florida State is, though, right?
And preach. So you're a pitcher.
Yes.
And going into it, so you studied psychology. Did you have any inkling that you would be a business owner down the road, or like how did that even develop?
I had no clue what I wanted to do. And outside of like when I graduated, I did communications for Miller Coors and then for a chain of liquor stores. So I'd been in the liquor industry, and I actually went out to see Florida State play in the Rose Bowl when they won the national championship. And someone had out there, it was super weird because us from the South, we're not used to these like classy tailgating places, but you tailgate like on a golf course out there,
Oh my
which
goodness.
they were not ready for two Southern schools to be drinking on a golf course. But I ended up seeing a family who had roped off their tailgate area and were letting their dogs run. And that was kind of, for me, the light bulb moment that started everything. Because growing up, my parents bred dogs. So I've been around dogs since I was like 2 or 3. So dogs, baseball, and alcohol were pretty much my life at that point.
You were
And
set up for success. Like it was predestined that this would like kind of come to fruition.
yeah, so that was the light bulb moment for me. And then that began a 5-year journey getting the first fetch up and running. When I first started it, there was nothing like it. I couldn't compare it to California, something in New York. So I'm like pitching investors, pitching NPUs, the city of Atlanta on this crazy idea of like, hey, we're going to open this bar and let dogs run free. Hey, by the way, we're going to have live music, outdoor TVs. It's going to be this social hangout hub. And, the obstacles I faced, I really think sports prepared me for, because you're so used to hearing no. You're so used to, you realize that life isn't fair. You realize that things aren't going to be easy. And that really got me prepared for what I was going to face. I mean, when I was trying to open the first one, I heard no from 86 banks. Like
Oh my
I
gosh.
was driving to Savannah, to Statesboro. I was driving to Tennessee, and every bank, it was the same thing. It was like, hey, we love this concept, but where are you getting these numbers from? Like, And because there wasn't any, I could give them bar numbers, I could give them restaurant numbers, but at the end of the day, that wasn't enough. So I actually had to privately fund the first batch. So I had to find like going to investors, raising capital, and even that was one aspect of it. But the permitting side, we were in permitting for 2.5 years. I had one crazy person who was convinced that this wasn't a real concept, and I was rezoning it to really because I wanted a gas station there. Like the amount of absurd things that you deal with when you're trying to open something that's unique it's mind blowing.
That's crazy. Okay, so I know you're a big deal and I've seen you be successful, but can you tell like our student athletes, so Fetch, tell them what Fetch is, and all that. So they get a little bit more background.
Not a big deal.
You are a
Fetch,
big deal.
Fetch, it was the first of its kind. It's a fully off leash dog park bar. So every dog that comes in, you're signing a liability waiver. It's got to show proof of vaccination. I wanted to create a safe place where not only dogs could socialize, but people could socialize as well. So, you come in, you let your dog run free. It's a huge park. We took a 1967 Airstream, converted that into a full service bar. We have coffee in the morning. We have 6 outdoor TVs. We have Wi-Fi throughout. We do events. We've partnered with Bumble and do a singles night with them once a month. We do live music. We do trivia. We've actually done a good bit of live stand-up comedy shows. But Fetch, the original, has been open for 3 years now, and in that time we were lucky enough. I had features from CNN, Travel Channel. We actually partnered with ESPN, and they did their ACC network launch party from the park. Mercedes did a national commercial from the park. So we've gotten some huge national exposure. And now, it's pushing to, I knew competition was going to come from day one. I trademarked as much as I could. I have patents. So now it's just preparing, what does phase one for our expansion look like? How do we prepare for competition, and how do we ensure that we're going to come out on top?
Incredible. I think, I mean, you mentioned it earlier that, being a student athlete has kind of helped you prepare for this. I can't imagine being told no 86 times just in general. Like that overcoming of an obstacle, but then also a vision. And that's what it means to be an entrepreneur. Um, and just the sheer success, like that's just so impressive. But I think it does speak to your experience as a student athlete, specifically a Seminole student athlete, if I'm a little partial myself. But how that kind of willed you into where you are, and the vision you have going forward to expand Fetch and to probably across the country. What I mean, if you're a student athlete, maybe back in your shoes, you have no idea, like you mentioned, you have no idea what you're going to do or where it's going to lead you. But what would you get? What kind of advice, I guess, would you give student athletes who are kind of going through that process and trying to figure that stuff out?
Yeah, I mean, one thing, so outside of Fetch, I've been on the board for Enduring Hearts for the last 6 years. So Enduring Hearts raises funding for pediatric heart transplant research. And, I think the lessons I've learned in the charity world, like I would say get involved in a nonprofit, because one, they're gonna let you learn so much and give you more control than any company ever would. I mean, so I got to help out on their, branding side, which is what my sweet spot is in communications. But the things I've learned from people on the board there that are way smarter than me, more experienced than me, and also, for them, I got to start and control an event. So I pitched them on using my alcohol relationships to do a whiskey gala, and the board didn't really want to mix pediatrics and alcohol. So year one, we had a really small budget, but I had full control, and I got to develop this full event and learn as I went. This past year, the event raised over $1 million.
Wow.
So through those 5 years where I got to create this event, I learned things that would help me outside of Fetch. I'm learning how to manage a budget, how to form partnerships, how to get negotiations for contracts. So it's not like your full-time job, you're going to have these responsibilities and you can't really go outside them. Whereas with a nonprofit, like you have the freedom to really learn and gain valuable exposure.
That's awesome. And another component of that student athlete experience too, that you do that early on, right? So, we pair our student athletes with those community service opportunities. And, you're getting in front of boosters to kind of create relationships with our Seminole boosters. And I know that those have even served our student athletes well, like past graduation.
Yeah.
So that early on involvement is amazing. What about, so you said that you had to like go out and sort of raise capital and, um, you didn't seem to me to be this like super outspoken person in undergrad, but obviously you had that networking ability. And what was that like going in front of these
Yeah,
people?
I'm not really outspoken. I just really believed in this concept and I was going to do whatever it took to make it a success. And now people understand it. But like sports teaches you to handle adversity, handle hearing no, and it just, at least for me, it just pissed me off. It just made me like,
Let that
I'm
fire.
gonna prove, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm gonna prove your boss wrong, and we'll see who's laughing in a few years.
It's incredible. And I think a lot of people peg like success into a certain type of personality. Like,
Yeah.
you have to have X, Y, or Z to, make it in whatever field. And that's just really not the case. I think it is a lot about the why and the passion and the vision. And then just being able to have that, like, I'm just going to get it done attitude, which obviously you have had and are continuing to grow your business in that way. With this like dawn of name, image, likeness, and student athletes kind of given potentially a voice to start that business model while they're here at Florida State. Um, what were some of the partnerships or the maybe some of that stuff that you had to like work through initially to get people on board or to kind of create that business plan?
Yeah, I mean, once we before Fetch opened, I really wanted to form some partnerships with some unique brands, and for me, Bumble stood out as this is a partner that same demographic. We can do some really cool events with them. How do I get in contact with them, and how do I make this happen? So I'm using resources that I've met to find friends of friends, and finally I found one contact who had a friend who like worked for Bumble and they got me in touch with someone higher up than them. But it's a process. Like right now, I've been trying to talk to Uber and Lyft for the last 2 years about partnering up to do like dog friendly rides, and we call it fetch pets. But they it's just like a slow process. You'll hear no, and you'll hear like, oh, I got to pass it up. And what bothered me is Uber tried like Uber Chopper at one point. Like they were illegally transporting people across borders, like from New York to Canada. And I was like, you're going to try helicopters and you won't try like something that 70% of Americans have in pets that they want to be able to take with them. But, it's a constant battle of trying to get in front of the right people, but partnerships are key. I've been very particular about the brands that we partner with at Fetch, but right now we have 19 park partners. They each have murals in the park, and they're a big part of our growth.
That's awesome. Um, Tell us some of your favorite stories from your time being a business owner at Fetch. Maybe something that's crazy off the wall that's happened, or um,
I mean, it's not my favorite time, but I learned a very hard lesson on I need to trust the people I hire. When we first opened, I was there like 120 hours a week. I live next door. I was there from like 7 a.m. to midnight every day, and I didn't trust. So we have bark rangers in the park that make sure like the dogs play nice, the park stays clean, and I didn't trust any of them. I was out there like constantly filling up water bowls, filling up tubs. So I was on my feet so much, and they were wet constantly from the bath area, from the tubs. I I have a pretty high pain tolerance, and I couldn't walk on one of my feet, and I was like, something's wrong. So I go to the doctor. I got trench foot. Like they call in other doctors. They're like, you know, it's bad when they start laughing. And one of them was like, I haven't seen this since Vietnam. So yeah, I ended up getting trench foot, but I learned a valuable lesson. Like you got to trust people you hire. And, you know, now I'm able to step back a little bit and focus on expansion while I have, since day one, I knew competition was coming. So I've had 5 managers training to take over other locations. So that's helped me step away and work on expansion. But that was definitely a valuable lesson that I learned, is to trust the staff that I put in place.
Right. It sounds like you wear a lot of hats, obviously. But what does that look like from the like structure wise? If you could like dream it out of, what does fetch look like in 10 years? And are you hiring people? Are you investing there? Are you just really trying to get the locations off the ground?
I mean, I need to hire. Right now, I'm doing all the partnerships, expansion. I run the social media. Um, everything outside of I manage the park. Now I'm down to three days a week, and the rest is just traveling, working on. For us, I didn't want to go the venture capital route. I didn't want to lose the freedom that I have now. So I'm forming developmental partnerships. I'm forming partnerships with investors for our expansion locations. So like one of our expansion parks is going to be in Buckhead, which is, it's basically the if you were to form up the nicest, densest area in Atlanta, it's Buckhead. And we're partnering with Jamestown, who is this huge national developer. I mean, they did Chelsea Market in New York. So like those are the partnerships that I see this using to grow, because they're the guys who can put us in New York and in San Francisco and the places that we couldn't afford.
Yeah.
But I need to hire. The first thing I'm doing when these other parks open is I need to find another creative. I need to find someone to help me with the events, help me with the marketing, and then hopefully I'll get an assistant one day. That'd be awesome. Because right, I made you send me a calendar invite because I just forget everything.
It's not, I mean, there obviously is a lot in your brain right now, so I could see where a 10:30 Zoom call wouldn't be something on the top of your brain.
Yeah, so I have at 12 o'clock, I have a final permitting approval meeting for the city of Atlanta. Because every location has something weird. Like our Alpharetta Park, they had to rewrite the liquor law for us, which took a year. Buckhead, I found out fences are prohibited. So we have to like
What?
go through this special exception variance vote to allow fences. So it's like nothing's easy. Every city has this weird thing that. But now I'm like a permitting expert. At least if fetch ever fails, I can be an expediter and just help push permitting through.
I feel like you've got a lot of backup options here. But I mean, is all this stuff self-taught? Like, are you learning this on the go or on the fly, or like how?
Yeah, I'm learning as I go. And I for the Jamestown meeting, like it was a power play. Like when I'm negotiating the partnership with them, I walk into this room and it's like 12 guys in suits. And that's just not me. I have 2 dress codes. It's either t-shirt or tux. There's no in between. So like these meetings, I'm going in a t-shirt and I'm like, look, you dress for the job you want. This is the job I want. So I'm not, this is
I'm trying
me.
to fool anybody. Like you don't
Yeah.
need anybody else.
Yeah. But I've learned negotiations. I've learned, contracts. I thought growing up that you just need one lawyer and they do everything. I have like 10 lawyers. They only do one thing. They won't do anything else.
Oh my gosh.
But it's self-taught. You live and you learn. I've made mistakes and I've learned from them. And, you hopefully make mistakes early and it makes it easier. But like, I mean, there were so many things wrong I did with the first park that I'm learning we need to change for the second, the third, the fourth park.
The fifth, the sixth, the nationwide parks that are going to be all
We,
over the country.
we
That's where
it's
Fetch
not
becomes this huge brand.
it's not public yet, but we are about to announce our first West Coast park, which I'm really excited about.
Are you moving to the West Coast?
I'm just a nomad. Right now I live in a guest house of one of our fetch members because I have no clue where I'm gonna be 3 months from now, 6 months from now. It's exciting, but it's definitely weird.
That's awesome. I'm just so impressed by number one, the pursuit of a goal, like obviously the passion behind it and creating something, and then just the persistence to make it happen, and then also to give back. And so your ability to connect with Enduring Hearts and to find purpose in that, and then to serve and lead. And student athlete development, we say serve, lead, live unconquered. And you certainly embody all of those things and all of those areas. You've
Thank
taken
you.
your experience as a student athlete. Um, I'm going to get on and I'm just going to like give you all of the positive Yelp reviews, even though I haven't been to the park yet, just to like fuel your success moving forward.
Should we talk about my one destructive
Yes,
behavior?
please tell the fans about your Yelp.
We all have one bad habit that we know is terrible and we still do. And mine is I'll go through the whole day not thinking about Yelp. And then I'll get home at like 10:30 or 11. I'm like, you know what? I haven't checked Yelp today. And then I just get hot for like 3 hours because it'll be one crazy person who's like, they didn't let me in, 1 star, or they didn't have my favorite beer, 1 star. And it's like, first of all, do you not understand how a scale works? Like 1 star should be, I walked in, broke my leg, I couldn't move, and they didn't help me out. Like it should be the worst of the worst. But I need to get better about that because it's costing me a lot of sleep.
Yes. Do not read the comments. Do not read Yelp. Just trust what you have going for you. And
Yeah.
obviously, you're doing something right. Um,
And I will say, outside of all that, like giving, I'm on the board for Enduring Hearts, but giving back is a big part of what Fetch is about. So we do 15 to 20 large events a year, and each of those events we partner with a charity partner. So if you're ever in Atlanta around Super Bowl time, you got to come up because we do a puppy bowl. So we partner with
yes.
canine assistants. So they train service animals for handicapped children. So they need to be around as many sights and sounds as possible. So we paint the turf like a football field, and we just have like 22 puppies in their little workers' vests.
Oh, that's awesome. How
It,
cool. How cool. Well, I mean, I know we have a lot of student athletes that are based in Atlanta too. So if you haven't checked out Fetch yet, encourage everybody to do that. But maybe there's a park coming soon near you. I mean, maybe Florida, maybe Tallahassee. You're gonna want to eventually come back to Tallahassee because you have a love for Seminoles. You're gonna want to be around this.
hey, I will say we are a Florida State bar, and our drink specials at the very bottom say excluding Gators. And if they want the discount, they have to take off their Gator gear. And the amount of Gator fans that I've seen that their fandom is worth $3 or $4, I'm just gonna say it's higher than I thought.
I love it. I love it. That's incredible. True Seminole, which is only acceptable. Like that's what we require for Career Discovery Fridays.
And when we did the ACC Network launch party, EJ Manuel came up for it, and then we had a few of the other ACC personalities. But me and EJ made sure that, so we had a costume contest. Whoever dressed their dog up the best as an ACC mascot. Me and EJ made sure that number one was a Seminole.
Slip those ballots in there, like rig the system. I have nothing against that. Do whatever you need to at all costs.
Exactly.
It's on your home turf, so you got to make that decision.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, your boys are doing great. Beat Florida, beat Miami, swept the season. You
Yeah.
need to come back for a baseball game soon.
I have no life. Like I'd love to, but like I'm on the road nonstop. We've got one park in construction, 3 more in permitting, 3 more in initial contract phases that should be announced over the next few weeks, and then from there, who knows? So I'm all over the place. But maybe one day we'll get a fetch in Tallahassee or in Florida.
I love it. I love it. From the moment that I started seeing Stephen start posting stuff about Fetch, I was like, he's gonna do big things with this, and I think you speak to a big part of our student athletes, and just that number one, the business development side. Like everybody has something to pitch, right? And everybody has a passion to pursue, and I think you speak straight to the heart of that. And then just the fact that as you're going through your career as a student athlete here at Florida State, you may not necessarily know what you want to do with a degree or what it's going to look like post grad, but you're kind of developing those relationships. I mean, you go to a Rose Bowl, you see something and it turns into a business venture. Like you seize opportunities and then you go from there. So you embody all of that. You're walking that walk, and then you're helping our current student athletes kind of follow a same path. So I hope one day that we get to bring you to campus in this non-Zoom world, which we hopefully go to soon. Um,
Hopefully.
and you can interact with our Seminoles and kind of continue to sell that story. Maybe it's whenever you open the Tallahassee branch,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and you can come and you can talk and we can be your promo. But more than anything, we're super proud of who you are, of what you've done, the way that you're giving back. But man, what a heck of a career and a ride thus far. Is there anything that you would want to share with our group, kind of like in summary of what it means to be Stephen Ochs, the Fetch Park extraordinaire?
No, I mean, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I mean, people get so fixated on trying to have their dream job by the time they're 24, and it's like that's just not how it works. I've met so many people who spent 2 years in law school and dropped out and ended up doing something completely different. I've met we have a member at Fetch who didn't know he wanted to be a doctor till he was 30,
Wow,
and now he's a surgeon. So it's like you never know. You're so young at that age, and you need to figure out what truly motivates you and pushes you.
absolutely. And you took those, but even post grad, like your relationships within the liquor industry and kind of creating those relationships. I think after you graduate, take a job, learn, and it's not something for forever. You don't have to have life figured out, but
Yeah,
just
and
uncover
if get a job and help with a nonprofit, like it can teach you so much, and that's really a chance for you to explore other outlets that you might find out where you're passionate about. Like that's one thing I learned from Enduring Hearts was what from my work there is just if you're not sure about something, you can test it out with a nonprofit. Like, how good are you with events? Do you enjoy throwing events? Do you enjoy Excel docs? I don't know. Some people do, not me, but
some people do. Some people do.
yeah. And your first jobs you are extremely limited on the freedom you have, and that's kind of my big thing that I would push is volunteer with, especially with a upstart nonprofit, to where you can really learn the ropes of a CFO role, a CEO role, that you don't get that opportunity with first jobs.
It's awesome. Such good stuff. Um, we appreciate you joining us for this. I
Problem.
fully expect now that you're going to get Brian Kelly, BK from Florida Georgia Line, up next so he can share his experience in the music industry. Because we would want to complete, and then we can get Tony Thomas after that and just make it a full feature of college apartment living. But
Maybe
seriously,
you just wait until in person and we just all three come at the same time.
that would be phenomenal. BK can play the music. You can bring some dogs. You're just going to create like happiness for everybody. Tony
Yeah,
can bring his child. He can like show us do like a foot race here.
exactly.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And we will touch base again.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen.